Hey Hawks. So in the last couple of weeks, I've taken you to the top of the pinnacles to talk about perspective. I've taken you to Tater Knob Pottery to see a potter working on the wheel. And I've done a drawing tutorial inspired by Keith Haring's artwork. Today, I would like to focus on a different medium, and that is paint. If you know me and you've been in my class for a couple of years, you probably know that that's the medium that I personally work in and I'm most passionate about in my own personal artwork. So when I'm not teaching art class, I'm usually painting. Today we're going to visit Artfully Yours Studio in Richmond, Kentucky. And we're going to see Jonathan Clark. He is a local painter. We're going to watch him leading a tutorial. So we didn't actually get to go into a noisy studio, okay? Sometimes when you go into a painting studio, it'll be noisy and messy, people working. He was actually filming a painting tutorial for his website. So many people right now, because of the pandemic, across really all careers, but especially in the arts, they're trying to prepare for a virtual experience when you can't actually be there in person. So that's what Jonathan Clark was doing. He was going ahead and pre-recording, filming lessons for the future if he does have to go virtual with some of his tutorials. So he had a film crew there filming him do this. So we had to be really quiet, we kind of had to sneak in, but I still wanted to take that opportunity to show you a painter working in the field. I really want you to pay close attention to the way that he describes how to do things. That impressed me a lot about him. He was very clear and concise, and he explained things really well, probably better than I would be able to if I were leading a painting tutorial. He works quickly, but he works efficiently and explains things very clearly. So I want you to kind of listen to the way that he explains things. Now, because we snuck in and there was another film crew there recording him, I didn't get the best up-close shots. So we also came in after he had already started a tutorial. So at the beginning of the video, you will see an image of the painting that had already been started. If you want to follow along, I think that you could still. Even though it's not super zoomed in, I think you would still be able to follow along if you want to. That's optional, that's not required. So in the beginning of the video, I show you what his painting looked like when we walked in to film. So you could pause there and you could try to recreate that. And then you could go along with the steps that he gives and what he demonstrates and shows throughout the video. Then I also show you what the finished version looks like. Now it is a Christmas themed, a holiday themed painting because he is preparing for the future during this pandemic so that people can still participate even if they're not physically there in person. Either way, even if you don't want to follow along, I still think it's a really great experience to see a painter working in the field. And then after we look at the tutorial that he does, I do get to see a sneak peek of some of his own personal work, and I kind of take you through the studio. I love the way a painting studio looks with all the brushes and easels and paint. It looks very messy, but there's something very beautiful about it. So I hope you enjoy. If you would like to follow along, you could get a canvas, a piece of paper. You could pause on that first image that shows the progress that had been made when we walked into film. And you could kind of try to recreate that, even though you won't have those step-by-step instructions led by Jonathan Clark. And then you could follow along with the steps that he gives after that. I think that you could go ahead and get a start on holiday painting, maybe a gift for someone that you love. So join me while I take you into Artfully Yours Studio.
For this next step, I'm using the same brush, and I want to use some dark brown this time to paint the deer's antlers and to do a few little highlights on the body. So I'm just going to paint right over those lights again and get a nice clean line on the antler. We're going with a dark brown antler for this deer. When I'm painting the antlers, I like to start out here at the top and just work my way back down to the bottom to keep all the lines nice and smooth. And it also helps to keep these thin so they don't keep getting thicker and thicker as I go. And if you can, give the top of that just a little curve with your brush. Kind of look like that soft antler that you see on reindeer a lot of times. Something like that. Make sure you get the white edges nice and clean. And then we're going to move right into the ears and then the hoofs with this same color. So with the same brush, I'm going to just paint the underside of the ear. This is just one little swipe of paint there. And then for the hoofs, I want it to kind of look like the hooves are buried in the snow. So I'm just going to do a little dash like that right at the bottom of the foot. Right at the bottom of the foot. And then here the same way. These dashes here of brown, just angle that a little bit so it looks like his feet are going into the snow and you have a little bit of overlap happening there. The next thing I want to do with this brush is I'm going to turn it vertical so I get a really thin line and just draw that line right back in there for the leg, for the second leg, and then a line here to separate those back legs from the front legs, so that way we're seeing all four legs really show up nicely. And one last thing I want to do is just under the neck. Bring that line all the way up. This is kind of a shadow that can look really nice from a distance. Make sure you have all those areas covered well, and then that is all you need to do on this step. For the next step, we're going to use our round brush. This brush has a point on the end and makes the really sharp lines that we're going to be able to use to fill in this collar and the nose, and then some of these lights we'll do in red. So I'm just going to start with the collar, and this time I'm going to take my brush and just twirl it in the paint so that I have a nice sharp point, and I can go right around these little circles. These are going to be some jingle bells on this collar, so I want to go around those first, and then just take your time and fill this in very carefully. It's a small space, but if you take it slow, it goes pretty easy with this brush. I'm using the tip of the brush to get those edges, and then here in the middle I can just press a little bit harder and fill that whole spot in pretty fast. So there's the collar. Let's go right up to the nose. The first thing I'm going to do with the nose is just draw a little oval, and it doesn't matter exactly the size or shape of that, just kind of a white space you can go around. And this is going to make the nose look shiny by giving it a white highlight. This is always a good thing to do on shiny objects when you're painting. If you leave a little white space or put a little white space over, it makes it look like it's glowing or has a highlight to it. Let's move right on to these light bulbs. We've got some Christmas lights up here. I'm going to go nice and thick with the red, so I'm just going to put the whole brush in the paint this time. And then pick a light bulb, and if you just take your brush at an angle and squish the paint right back in there, using the brush with the whole side on the canvas, get a nice bright finish that doesn't take too long. Let's do, say, maybe 3 red. And then we'll switch to the green to do the final lights. So make sure you clean your brush out really good between the red and the green. We don't want these colors to blend, and we want them to show up really nice and bright, but we're going to use the same technique now with the green, just loading the brush all the way back to the handle, and then filling that in nice and thick with the green paint. So I've got 3 green Christmas lights and 3 red. And now we are ready to do a few little details to finish this up. I'm using my round brush again, and this time I want to use some bright yellow to fill in just a few little details. These jingle bells can be bright yellow, and I'm just going to take a little blob of paint and just dab it right on there nice and thick so that these have a little texture to them when they dry. And also these Christmas lights can have the yellow base right here where the light connects to the cord. And I'm just going to fill these in right over those lines. Just a quick step to get those details in place. Now we're going to take our brush, and instead of using the front of the brush, we're just going to flip it over, and we're going to use this little wooden back part for a minute and do something different. Let's just dip that right into the white, and I'm just going to start throwing some dots in this background. And you can see I'm just spreading them out kind of randomly. You want to fill up all this space, maybe even some in front of the reindeer. And start to fill up this sky with some snow. So think about where your snow might be. It could be falling in front. It could be falling on his ears. There's lots of ways you could go about this, but if you just take the back of your brush and start to spread it around everywhere, make sure you get the corners. And then you can do as much snow as you want to. This can be a really snowy winter scene, or you can keep it kind of light. I think right there is good for me. I'm going to go ahead and stop and bring this step to a finish. So to finish this painting, we want to add some highlights with white, and then we want to do some shadowy areas with black, just to make everything stand out nice and sharp. And so if you have your round brush clean and some clean white, we want to add a few highlights here on these lights. Just a dash of white, real similar to the nose. And you may want to wait for these to dry to do this part. And just a dash of white somewhere on that light gives it a little bit of a highlight and makes it look like it's got a reflective kind of surface. And then we're going to use some black, so I'm just going to wipe my brush off and go right in here to the black and just load it up with paint again. And this time I'm going to angle my brush up and just press right into that eye so I don't have to spend a lot of time kind of drawing that eye. Just use the brush to do the hard work here and just let that be nice and bright. And now we want to do a few dark shadowy areas with the black. So just with the tip of your brush, go back over the mouth, go back over these eyebrows, and anywhere else you think it might need. Definitely I'm going to go right back over these chords here and make this line nice and dark. But then if there's some other areas that you want to outline on your painting, feel free to kind of customize it and just make it your own. I'm using just the tip of the brush to sort of draw this shape right back out around the antlers. And that brings that to a nice finish. The last thing I want to do is go right back to my small end of the brush here, the wooden back part, and just put a little highlight in the corner of the eye. And I think that makes this look just like a cute cartoon figure. So when you finish these steps, step back from your painting, take a look at it, and see what you want to do to just bring it to a finish. There's lots of ways you can go about it. If you want to add more snow, maybe sitting on his head, there's so many fun things you can do with this one. Just kind of take it and make it your own and have fun with this painting.
As long as they're okay with it.
Yeah,
So we're recording all the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is one I've been working on.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. It's bigger than I imagined.
Yeah, this is the second one in the series. We had a show planned for October. It's tentatively being like just reimagined, so I don't know what's
Yeah.
going to be the outcome. But the whole show was just going to be a lot of these like summer